Really great to see you all, and thank you to our fearless leaders at Temple Israel of Boston for putting this on and for including us. It's really wonderful. I thought just to, some of you have been going at this for a couple of hours, so if you want to, you can kind of stand up, maybe stretch your legs a little bit. I'm standing here. You can get your body going a little bit. Nobody else is standing up. You're all half asleep. I get it. I get it. But if it will help you, do that. I'm also having some hip pain, so this is good. This is good for the hip pain. Um, all right. I'm feeling energized now. I I want to start with a piece of music, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's see. I should probably go into hold on one sec. Let me make it look like a slideshow. Slideshow. There we go. Slideshow. There we go. Okay. Can you see the screen? Yes? No. Yes. Okay. Hold on. I'm getting okay. All right. So this is a text from one of I think of all the rabbis with strange names in the Talmud, Ben Bagbag is right up there. I don't know if you've ever come across him, but that shouldn't in any way undermine his beautiful teaching. And I just thought this would be a great place to start. So mute yourselves but do sing along if you want. And the reason is because still Zoom doesn't work so great if multiple people are singing at the same time. This might be a melody you know. I'm just going to sing the chorus of it, but it's been Bad Bag's advice that whatever we're looking for, whatever we need, we can find it in Torah. Turn it, turn it. Again and again, for everything is in it. Turn it, turn it, turn it again. Turn it, turn it. Again and again, for everything is in it. Turn it, turn it, turn it again. Turn it. Turn it again and again, for everything is in it. Turn it, turn it, turn it again. So, what I wanted us to think about for the next 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes or so, is how some of these texts that I'm going to share with you are very urgent and relevant, and there's something now about these texts. And so I wanted you to help me kind of think through that together. So, first of all, this idea that no matter what we're dealing with in life, hafoch ba v'hafoch ba, we go back to the text because we believe dechola ba, because everything's in it. And this idea that we're supposed to search into it and grow old with it. I love that teaching here. I don't know, for some of you, this might be, 30, 40, 50 times that you've had a Tikkun Leil Shavuot. For some people, it might be the very first time you've ever done it. But the wisdom of this text is that we're going to keep digging into it, diving into it, unpacking it, and we will find meaning in it wherever we are in our lives. So I just wanted to start with that as sort of a frame. Hafoch ba v'hafoch ba. And in some ways, it is the most natural thing to do Jewishly, and in other ways, it really is an extraordinary and somewhat certainly not obvious idea that in the context of what we're dealing with in our world today. In the last session, we were talking about artificial intelligence, um, the speed at which information comes our way. We we probably all heard about the terrible attack in Boulder today, and within a matter of minutes, an hour or so, it became known. And not only that, but there was video in real time. These things are coming at us. So it's not at all obvious that we would go to a text like Pirkei Avot to try to make sense of the moment we're in right now. So I just wanted to start with that. And then I'm going to share a few texts that are quite ancient, and then one that's more of a 19th, 20th century text, and then a 21st century text. So Pirkei Avot was just a framing text. Now I want to look at a psalm, and this is Psalm 121. Shir Lamalot Esainai El Heharim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. It begins with a question. Where do we look when we are in need of meaning? Where do we go when we're trying to make sense of things? And then the answer is given. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. So I had a couple questions that I added to this slide for you to consider. Where is it that we go to look for help when we're feeling overwhelmed? And this sense of looking up, I think, is interesting. It says "esa'enai," raise your eyes up. And actually, this week's Torah portion is naso, the same exact root. The census that begins the book of Numbers that we read just this last Shabbat. It talks about counting the Israelites by lifting up their heads. So that's the same root here. So what is this? What is this looking up? And finally, what does this teach us about vulnerability and faith? And to make sure that we're all as engaged as possible and not conking out, feel free to, you could put something in the chat if you had an idea that you wanted to share, or certainly, raise your hand. Would love to hear your voice. I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment so you can, but those are the questions right there. I'll try to put them in the chat. But does anyone want to share a thought about that first text? Well, it's really the second text, but the lifting up. Any ideas about what that might suggest and what's urgent about that, I guess? Robert, please go ahead, unmute yourself and let's hear your voice.
Sure, everyone. I think
Sorry,
that
wrong Robert. Okay, go.
okay.
Both
Go ahead. Go ahead, please. You're another Robert. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I used to live in the winters in Tucson, and the Tucson is ringed with mountains. And when you look up your head to those mountains, it was really a very spiritual experience. When you're standing by the ocean, as impressive as the ocean is, if you're at the beach, you're looking down. A lot of places you're always looking down to the ground. But when you're surrounded by mountains, you're always looking up at the sky, and you're
Hmm.
a tremendous view of half of the universe you're looking out at.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Nice. So I could do a poll if I was really quick at Zoom. I'd do a poll and say, which of you are mountain people and which of you are ocean people, if you had to choose. But there's something about mountain people, right? You're looking up, or maybe it's the astronomers amongst us, and we're always looking up. What does that do for us? Um, and how does that maybe help us in this moment right now? There was another Robert who joined in. Which was the other Robert?
Oh, here's another Robert.
Oh, hey, Robert.
Yeah, so thank you. So hello, everybody. So I think that's basically Hashem's way of saying that we all matter. We're all here for a reason, and we're not just a number. While there is a census that you're counting, the point is to look up to see, your face, and make that connection with Hashem. That's what I think, because you want to know that people are there, but everyone matters. Like God, there's a phrase from the Psalms: God, gives name to every star.
Nice, nice. Thank you, Robert. Um, Anyone else want to chime in? Well, we'll have more opportunities. I'm going to bring more text to you. Oh, Hannah Hussein, please.
Well, the ancients wouldn't have known about modern neurology, neuropsychology, but they would have through direct experience. There's research that is contrary to sort of everyday common knowledge where we say, well, somebody's looking down, the floor at their lap because they're depressed. But actually, you become more depressed when you look down. Your brain reads your face and your posture. And if you don't believe me, try this for like a day. And when you look up, that changes the biochemistry of the brain. So the ancients, I'm sure, just noticed it experientially when they didn't have 24/7 distractions, that you stimulate more positive brain chemistry when you're looking upward.
Thank you. I just have to comment on your name. So Chana, grace, and Chused is probably related to Chesed, kindness. You must be
Yes,
the
yeah.
nicest person in the world.
Except when I'm not.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. All right, I see Lori Kipnis has her hand up. Go ahead, Lori.
Um, I was thinking about somebody mentioned Avraham before. In the Akedah, he's it says that when he hears the angel, he looks up, and that's when he sees the ram. That maybe also related to our being more depressed if we're looking down, or more insulated, isolated, and sometimes the answers come just by looking up.
Nice, nice. Thank you. I also just want to acknowledge that the Psalm 121 does begin, and I didn't really start with this because I wanted it to emerge a little bit, but it begins in a place of pain, in a place of bewilderment, right? Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. The person needs help. It doesn't give us the context before that. That's where the psalm begins. Psalm 121 begins just with I lift my eyes up, I'm looking for help. We don't know the context. Like, what happened to you? Why are you searching for help? What happened that made you look to God for help? Was there a trauma in your life? Was there pain in your life? Was there loss in your life? Is there illness? What's going on here? So this I wanted to start with that text because whether we look at our collective experience going back October 7th. We could go back even further. This is a shameless plug, but it wasn't really what I meant to do. It wasn't part of the script, but I have a podcast. It's called Search for Meaning with Rabbi Yoshi. And I was organizing some things with the podcast. And I went back to my first episode, which is from July of 2019. And I interviewed Paula Vogel, who wrote the play Indecent, and she's a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. It's amazing. I hadn't listened to the podcast since I published it, so it was actually really fun to go back and listen to that. And I was thinking, oh my God, I interviewed this woman before COVID, before October 7th, before the horrible murders of last week, before what happened in Boulder today. It was before all those things. And one of the themes, though, of this play, if you've seen it, it's set in 1930s, 1940s Poland, and then Lower East Side in New York. And she was talking in this conversation I had with her in 2019, and obviously the context was the Tree of Life synagogue shooting and the uptick of anti-Semitism from then. And it just hit me. It just struck me. It's like, well, where am I looking up from? It could be any of those things. And again, it could be those collective things that we experienced as Am Yisrael, as a community. It could be human collective things. You could say 9/11. You could look at other moments of loss and horror, or it could be very personal. Could be, no, I lost this person that was close to me, and that's why I'm down, and that's why I'm hunched over, and that's why I need to lift my head up. So I was reflecting on that a lot today. Let me share the next text with you, and this was the Psalm, but now we're going to go to Exodus, and I love this one. So Moses says to the people, this is
Zooming
Exodus
in a little bit
14.
closer.
Can you hear? Can you guys hear okay? Okay. All right. Moses said to the people, have no fear, stand by and witness the deliverance which Adonai will work for you today. Then Adonai said to Moses, why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. Have no fear. Stand by and witness the deliverance which Adonai will work for you today. And then God says, why are you crying to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. What's happening here? What does this instruction mean? Robin, please. I see your hands
Yeah, I
up.
think it's like the free will that we have to take action at this point. That we have to be a partner with God and take action.
Yeah, don't just sit here and pray. That's lovely. I'm all for it. I'm a synagogue rabbi. I like that very much, but that's not that's not always the response that is needed. Sometimes, what do you have to do, Robin? You have to move. Move, walk, go forward. And I love that the Hebrew doesn't really say go forward, but it says vayisau. But I like that forward sense. It says, ma titzak elai. Here, I'll just point it out here. Ma titzak elai. What are you crying to? What are you shrieing to me for? Daber el bnei Israel vayisau. Okay? Tell the Jews to move it. Tell them to go. Don't sit around and try. You got to move forward. So how do we move forward when we're feeling trapped or paralyzed? And again, I planned this session. I started working on this about a month ago. So the events of the last 2 weeks were not um, known to me. I could have surmised that something like that could happen, but boy, I'm approaching this text differently today than I would have 2 weeks ago, uh, before the murders in Washington D.C. and before the violence in Boulder today. I'm thinking about it differently. How do we move forward when we're feeling trapped or paralyzed? Sarah, I see your hands up, please.
Yeah, I discovered some years ago that was operating pretty much on trigger in terms of moving forward to address things. And one of the things that I had to learn is sometimes the way to move is to step back
Mm,
and to let something come a little bit further towards me before I respond, or to let something else happen that before I see what intervention or action I might take. So
mm,
a little bit of a paradox there.
mhm. Yeah, sometimes you got to take that step back or 2 steps back or 3 steps back before you can figure out how to move forward. And I think that at least this particular text, the context of this text is, but don't take too long, Sarah. Don't take too long, right? Because we can just become paralyzed. So what is that balance? And there certainly are those moments for introspection. The Psalms themselves are are an exercise, a treatise in reflection, and even the tradition of the daily recitation of Psalms, right? That's an opportunity for introspection. That's an opportunity to reflect. That's an opportunity for planning. And sometime sometimes we just have to move. We have to move forward. But thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Any other comments? I see some great things coming in the chat too. So if anybody sees anything and you're inspired by that, feel free to respond to that or raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to share another text with you. All right, now we're jumping in time. I did this chronologically, so now we're moving to the Talmud. This is from Tractate Shabbat. Anyone who had the capability to effectively protest the sinful conduct of their household and did not protest is held accountable. The same applies for one's town or the entire world. The context in the Gemara is, what happens if you find out that some of your fellow Israelites are doing the wrong thing? Not so hard to imagine sometimes. Human beings doing the wrong thing, our fellow Jews doing the wrong thing. Sadly, it is very much part of the human condition. But our Jewish heritage our Jewish tradition wants us to respond. And one of the ways we respond is we're supposed to engage in the mitzvah of tochacha, rebuke. So if we see someone going astray, we're supposed to actually say, well, wait a second, Reuben, you're doing the wrong thing. This is not going to end well for you. It's not going to end well for the Jews. You have to get back on the right path. And so, but we so rarely do that. And when we do it, we often do it ineffectively. So it says if you have the capability to protest the sinful conduct of your household and you don't do it, the sin is on your head. And the same applies for one's town or the entire world. I mean, this is an example perhaps of rabbinic exaggeration. It goes from this is how you're supposed to do it in your own household. Okay, fine. It's my kid. It's my spouse. It's my parent. I have a relationship and I'm being encouraged by the tradition to say, "Hey, dad, this is not working. You got to stop that. That's a terrible way to behave, right?" And vice versa. Okay, my own town. All right. And they're not imagining megalopolises like Los Angeles and Boston. I know we have people from all over the country, different parts of the country, Detroit. Even smaller towns are probably bigger than most of the cities the rabbis found themselves in. But even in a small town, okay, there are going to be people you don't know that well. Am I really going to say that thing to that person, tell that person you're doing the wrong thing and rebuke them? But then they extend it and they say, B'chol ha'olam kulo. B'chol ha'olam, anywhere in the world where sin is happening, where misbehavior is happening, nitpas al kol ha'olam kulo. Okay, it applies there too. All right, so what is this text demanding of us? And it's not just anti-Semitism and misinformation. It's obviously every kind of human evil you can imagine. And then how do we balance protest and compassion? Hannah, I see your hands up, please.
I don't know Hebrew. That seems to me a key word, at least in the English, is the capability to effectively protest. Is that effective, that qualifier in the
I
Hebrew?
think the effective is a little, it's not fully there, right? It says kol mi she'efshar lemachot la'anshe beito velo micha nitpas al anshe beito, right? So anyone who is able to to prevent members of his household from sinning, I think it is capable of preventing. That means effectively protesting. I think that's why they translate it that way.
So that makes a big difference, because you, in one of your examples, you said something about, speaking to somebody in your family. If you don't have a relationship of trust and some credibility, then a rebuke could actually even backfire. It certainly isn't effective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right. When it's lovely to think about it this way, but let's be real. If you're rebuking strangers who've never met you online, how well does that work out? You know, just give it a shot. I just put the text in the chat so I can see you and you can see each other when we talk here a little bit, but you can also have the text there. Yeah, how does that work out for us? And the answer is it doesn't usually work out at all. But this this demand, this unbelievable demand of the text that somehow we are responsible for the sins of the whole world. What do we do with that? It'd be easy to just say, rabbinic hyperbole, they're trying to make a point and then ignore it. But I think there's a deep truth here about our mutual responsibility. Lori, please, I see your hand. Thank you.
So I also think of Pirkei Avot, which says you may not be able to complete the task, but that doesn't mean that you're off the hook.
Hmm.
And so collective responsibility also means, in this context, I think it means you have to try.
Hmm.
And it's also incumbent upon us to sort of discern like where and when, because my understanding of Tochacha is that there are conditions in which you do this and conditions in which, like, if somebody appears to be very not, the degree to which somebody is going to be receptive to what you have to say. So it's a two-way street.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, the famous teaching about tochacha, about rebuke, is that, there's only one person in any generation who knows how to do it.
Mm.
And so again, that's rabbinic exaggeration. It's saying like it's really hard to do it very well. Most people, frankly, suck at it. And then it says there's only in every generation, there's only one person who really knows how to receive it. Because when your friend calls and says, "Hey, Lori, can we have coffee?" And then you realize when you sit down at coffee, the person came to chew you out, right? It's pretty hard. It's like, whoa, I didn't see this coming, or I'm not ready for this, or who are you to tell me that? We get defensive or whatever it is. And you put those two things together, not many people know how to do it well, and not many people know how to receive it. You could default to, what's the point? But the text is telling us, well, I'll tell you the point, Lori. The point is, if you don't do it, the sin's on your head. So when you see people out there doing the wrong thing and you don't do anything about it, well, now the sin's on your head. And what I find so overwhelming right now is we're drinking from this fire hose. It seems like there's so much misbehavior happening. And I'm not just talking about, on governmental levels. I'm talking about, it seems like everywhere, it's like, oh my God, look what's happening in the world. So it's coming at, and we're so much more aware of it because there's all these different, streams coming at us, whether it's social media or whatever's in our feed, it's coming at us. So I won't speak for you. I'll just speak for myself. It can feel overwhelming. Like who am I even supposed to say it to? And there's no way they're even going to hear me or listen to me. So I might as well just ignore it, and pull the covers fully over my head. Thank you, though, Lori. Emmett, I see your hands up, please.
I just want to name also the translation you gave, anyone who is capable of preventing, really brought to mind the issues of privilege that can come into discussions like this. Like there are people who would be endangered by attempting to prevent some of the harm that happens in the world. And there are people who maybe want to be able to protest or to speak out against some of the things that are happening, but feel that that would be too big of a risk and their lives would be threatened or their livelihoods would be threatened or their families would be threatened. And I think part of what I want the rabbis to be saying, whether or not they were actually having this in mind when they said this, is like, if you don't have the capability to prevent the thing, then maybe you should still try, but you're not going to be blamed if you don't speak up.
Yeah, nice. Who has the platform, as it were, that enables them to say what they want to say? And you make a very good point. In certain contexts, speaking up, you could get punched in the nose or a lot worse. And so, we have to be careful. And you see this. I was introduced to this concept a few years ago, this concept of ambient rage, just this kind of rage that's everywhere. And boy, again, I don't want to talk for any of you. I'll just tell my own experiences that I see a lot of it. Is it vestiges of the COVID lockdowns? Is it economic factors and injustices? I just read an article today about how the AI unemployment apocalypse is already upon us. Whoa! It's like, hey, wait a second. What do we do about that? You take the sense of helplessness and horror that so many Jews and other people of conscience have felt since October 7th. You take the incredible sadness many of us feel knowing that there are innocents on both sides of this conflict who are suffering terribly. It's kind of endless. Where do we respond? How do we respond? Who has the privilege to respond? The confidence to respond. Beautiful comment. And I see a lot of things in the chat there. I'm trying to navigate them all here. Robin, let me go to you, and I'll try to listen and also see if there's a comment we want to bring up.
Yeah, I was thinking, would you put the quote in about speaking up, starting with the community and then going larger groups. Taking it back biblically, it was reminding me sort of, in a sense, like, if you can't even speak up, and with people that you're never going to speak up in a larger setting, like, for the whole Jewish people. And then it reminded me of the incident with the golden calf, right? Of idol worship, that people there didn't speak up, and they were still held responsible.
Nice. Yeah. And of course, in that episode, the one who has the position of privilege and power, going back to Emmett's point, who could speak up but doesn't seem to have the courage to, is Aaron. Or on the other hand, maybe it's a great lesson to us that sometimes you need to let people, if they're in a place where things are likely to get out of control, maybe you need to give people a little bit of room to express some of that concern, rage, fear, who knows, and wait a little bit. But that's certainly one of the great examples of that. So just to kind of review a little bit of where, the journey we've been on so far, right? So we started with this Pirkei Avot text that was just a reminder that in moments of unease, in moments of anxiety, in moments of outright fear, and even like panic almost, what do? We go to the text. Okay, that's the turn it and turn it again. And then the opening text coming from a place of concern, of fear, of feeling lost, of feeling anxious, of feeling traumatized. Esai and I, we look up and say, God, where does our help come from? Then we went to the Exodus text. That's a reminder that whatever we're going through, sometimes we just have to move forward. I have a friend who's been a wonderful confidant over the years. He said, I was born without a rear view mirror. That's how he sort of sees it. Now, there's a danger to being born without a rear view mirror. It can get you into a certain degree of trouble. On the other hand, boy, I see this guy, whatever challenging thing comes his way, whatever crazy thing life throws at him, he just keeps moving forward. And there's something really helpful about that, especially when you're confronted with a tremendous amount of loss. So that was the text from Exodus, and now this text from the Talmud, reminding us that we have to move forward. The text from the Talmud reminding us that we have a responsibility to others, and not just people in our household, not just people in our community, our synagogue community, or our larger Jewish community, or our town, but the whole wide world. We are responsible to people on the other side of the planet who are going through challenging things, and we have to be there for them. Robert Krinsky, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like everything that's being brought up here and putting together this mosaic. I think one thing to point out here is, let's go back to Moses before the burning bush, where he didn't want to be the leader, because here you're talking about taking responsibility and being engaged. That's what this is saying to me. And Moses didn't want to do it. It took Hashem, several times until Hashem got actually a little upset and said, no, you're going to do this. And the other thing that happens in that dialogue is that Hashem says to Moses, you don't believe, it's you who don't believe in the people, right? They are believers, but you have to believe in them. And then he has the hand turns white. That was kind of like, and I think what's happening there is then later on in the Torah we read about when Miriam speaks ill of Abraham, and then her hand turns white, and it talks about, and he prays for her and goes to Hashem and says, please heal her. And then, and that became an important prayer, which we, say all the time for people's healing. And I think what's happening here is that it says at that point, right around that point in the Torah, it says Moses was the most humblest of people. So I think it starts, if you're going to rebuke somebody, the first thing is you have to care about them. They have to trust that you care about them, even if they're a stranger. Somehow you have to communicate that to them. it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the other thing is, you also have to listen. That was the thing. He was, Moses was a good listener. And the thing about, Judaism is more so than other religions or cultures, even, it's very much of the ear. And oftentimes when you see even the word look in Torah, it's really referencing a listening, and you have to listen to the other before you can rebuke them. And what someone was saying before about sometimes taking a step back, I don't see that as taking a step back. Moving forward is considering what's going on in the situation. That's acting. What God doesn't want, it seems to me, is to be paralyzed. Woe is me, overwhelmed, all that sort of thing. That's not the Jewish way. Despair is not the Jewish way. If the despair is what we'd have been, as a Jewish people, been wiped out by now if we fell into despair. God knows, even looking at our history, you can see all the opportunities for despair and having a victim attitude. Victim attitude is very different from being victimized. That's a completely different thing. And having a victimized attitude means that you're in a state of paralysis and you become an object rather than a subject engaging with the world. And the quote that you were giving before, that's about engaging with the world and doing what you can to try to help.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. And that point at the end, how do we respond? Are we going to respond with a certain degree of self-efficacy, a sense that, no, I can move forward somehow, I can move the needle, or do we default to that type of victimhood? And I think that Exodus text that we looked at earlier, where God says, and this is a different reading on that text, but it's almost as if God is saying, yeah, don't just sit around and cry about it. Stop whining and crying and bemoaning. Stop it. Move forward. Okay. Move forward. Ask yourself the question, okay, what needs to be done? How can I make this situation better? Let's be pragmatic. What are the options available to me? And how can I make the best of the situation that I find myself in? Something very powerful and important about that. Lots of great comments in the text in the chat over there. So feel free to look at any of those, and I see some people are commenting back and forth. So it's nice we're getting some conversations happening there. I want to bring another text into you. So we started with the Turnit text, the Psalm. We got to look up and try to find a way out of this challenging situation we're in. Then the text from Exodus. Sometimes you just have to move forward. This text that we just saw from the Talmud Shabbat, teaching us that we have a role to play with the things that are not going right in the world. And we can't just put our heads in the stand and say, you know what, I'm going to build myself a bubble and live in the bubble. Nope. You have to get out there in the world and you have to fight for justice. You have to fight for kindness. You have to fight for a better world. And you are responsible. Each and every one of us is responsible for all the bad things that are happening in the world. Anything we could possibly do to try to prevent it, we need to be doing. But now I'm going to share another text. Now we're going to move forward in time. I shared a text, some biblical text, a Mishnaic text, a Talmudic text. This one is from Rabbi Abraham Isaac HaKohen Cook. Harav Cook is how he's referred to usually. There's his son and grandson were also important scholars, but when people talk about Harav Cook, they mean Abraham Isaac HaKohen Cook. He was the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of mandatory Palestine, pre-state Israel. He was the chief rabbi, a poet, a mystical thinker, and one of the great leaders of religious Zionism. And he believed very deeply in the redemptive power of Jewish peoplehood. And this idea, and remember at this time, there were many religious Jews who felt that Zionism was a type of heresy. Why was it a heresy? Because according to conventional rabbinic wisdom, we're being punished for all the sins of our ancestors. That's why we're living in galut. That's why we live in exile. And it's not up to us. We don't get to decide when we come out of exile. We come out of exile when God tells us to. That was the conventional rabbinic wisdom. And when when people like Abraham Isaac Cook and others say, no, no, we are supposed to advocate. We're supposed to move forward. That Exodus text we saw before. We're supposed to dive in and be the Nachshons who are ready to jump into the waters and part those waters. That was a type of heresy, and Rabbi Cook was one of those. So I'm going to share a text with you that I just love. It's from a publication called Shmona Kvatzim, which means like the 8 collections. They were these 8 notebooks of Abraham Isaac Cook that were published posthumously. They weren't notebooks that he had edited and kind of rewritten. There's something kind of raw to them. And in one of those collections, the second of these 8 notebooks, he has a teaching about what do the righteous do when they see wickedness in the world? Or what should the righteous do when they see wickedness in the world? So based on what we've already seen, and if you want, you can put an answer here in the text, but based on what we've already seen, let me just ask you, what are the righteous supposed to do if they see wickedness in the world? What should their response be? I'd love to hear from someone we haven't heard from yet. Not that I haven't loved the voices and want to hear them again, but maybe get someone we haven't heard from yet. Is there anyone who hasn't shared who wants to? What's the response of the righteous to wickedness in the world? I'm giving you some wait time to see if you have the maybe your brain's slowing down like mine, but see if there we go. Jennifer Z came in. Okay, Jennifer, give us a response.
Hi, yes, I just came in, so I apologize that I did not hear the beginning. But I would just wanted to add that I suppose if we see wickedness in the world and we want to bring more righteousness, that we amplify the righteousness that we do see, so that we share either by passing along what other people are doing or trying to
Right.
take people are doing and riff on it in our own way and bring that into the world.
Thank you. Thank you. So a good technique. This is like tactical, right? So we see wickedness in the world. We look to the good people, look to the good people, and they'll give us, if we don't really know how to respond, well, my goodness, I've got all of these great role models out there, people who are wonderful teachers and exemplars. I'm going to look to them, and then I'll know the response, and I'll try to respond in a similar way. Thank you, Marcy. Please.
So I guess trying to figure out the best lens to look at it, right? Because to say, well, it's nuanced and contemplating how to the best, right? When they say righteous, what's the best way to respond? Because like I feel like if we look back at thousands of years of history, the Jewish discourse kind of changes perceptions based on where we are socially as a people, right? So like looking at Akiva and the Bar Kokhba rebellion in a way he viewed, or the way you can read about how he viewed Bar Kokhba, and then thousands of years later we look at it and it's like, well, here's a Sadiq who said, hey, this person's doing something for good, or like I don't know. It's kind of like I like what the person before me said of hey, like look to other people of kind of like, okay, what are they doing? But
Mhm.
also just not having inaction, right? Not
Right.
getting caught up like the what you read from, God saying, don't just sit there and cry, or Moses saying, take action. But I think, taking action for everybody looks differently, and I'm reading a book about post World War II people and kind of what happened there, and it's kind of like on one hand, it's like the best revenge was Jews living a Jewish life and thriving, and then you have these people that are looking for their own way of dealing with it and going from there. And it's kind of like, how do you make the best decision in the moment? And then as you reflect on it and you get judged by history or contemplation or
Right.
things like that, right? So it's kind of like, the things that are happening in America. What's the best action to take? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking up is certainly a good thing, not remaining quiet, but it's kind of like that. You have like, it's almost like it's not just what action to take, but how to have your own independent thoughts and think as an individual and not get stuck in the hive mind. And then all of a sudden it just takes, goes off track. Like, as a transgender Jew, this is a very difficult month because the people that typically this time of year that I would be having fellowship with and celebrating with, my religion and who I am is problematic within that group anyway. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, what is the next best thing, or what is the next best action? And it's like, okay, finding other Jews in the same world with me, in this modern age, there's a Facebook group called Queer Zionist Jews, and that has been a wonderful way of networking and connecting and having fellowship and finding representation. So sorry for going on and on. I think I had too many cups of coffee, but yeah, it's kind of like, regardless of what we decide in the moment,
Right.
there's always that, okay, somebody's going to reflect, yeah.
Marcy, thank you. I really appreciate your comment. Um, and so many things to react to. I will just say one thing. I went to there's an organization here in Los Angeles called JQ, and I'm involved with JQ, and they've done work at our congregation at Stephen Wise Temple on inclusion and how we can build more inclusive Jewish communities. And so today was the West Hollywood Pride March, and JQ had a delegation, and I came to show my support. And we had they had these nice shirts printed up, and then there were several flags, very large pride flags with Jewish stars on them. And I know in other pride parades that's been a big issue. And what was beautiful about today was everywhere we marched, we got lots of cheers, lots of support. I didn't see one single nasty comment, not one. Could have happened, but I didn't hear it. So it was actually really lovely in the face of all of that. And I've heard so many examples of that. And I'm not in any way suggesting those aren't real. I know they are. I've talked to friends who've told me that. But today was actually really lovely. All right, let me get to the Rabbi Cook's piece. We started just by I asked you the question. Well, if you see wickedness in the world, what do you do about it? And we already got a bunch of great responses. But I'm going to share with you what Rabbi Cook wrote, okay? And this is in this collection, these notebooks of his. He says, Al kain hatzadikim tehorim enam kovlim al harisha, okay? They don't, it's that theme again of like, don't sit around and kvetch about it. Don't sit around and kvetch about all the wickedness of the world. Oh, there's so much wickedness in the world. No, don't do that. It says, Ele mosifim tzedek. Go do more justice, okay? Enam kovlim al hakfira, ele mosifim emunah. They don't sit around and complain and shry and kvetch about, oh, there's so much, there's no belief anymore. There's no emunah. It's all heresy and disbelief and, naivete and ignorance. Nope. They just go and they demonstrate emunah, faithfulness. Enam kovlim al Habe'erut, ele mosifim chokhmah. So they don't sit around and say, everybody's an ignoramus, everybody's a bore. These days nobody knows nothing. Okay. Instead, they just go and they study more wisdom. All the self-restraints they assume in quiet act powerfully for the good in ways that no external practical efforts could ever reach. Okay, so the idea is, what do they do day by day by day? All the little things to try to make the world a better place. They're not looking for some type of miracle to come in and solve all the problems. Instead, they are themselves out there trying to bring more justice, more faith, more wisdom, and you could just add all the other things. And of course, when we think about the more contemporary expression, you don't just curse the darkness, but you try to increase the light. Light a candle for goodness sake. So, what would it mean to increase light rather than curse the darkness? And where in your life can you respond to pain with creativity or with kindness? And again, we'll give people a chance to respond. Love to have repeat offenders, as it were, more voices coming back to us. But would also love to hear from people who haven't had a chance to speak yet. And just to give you a sense of where we're going, we have one more text after this, and then we'll conclude with a little prayer at the end. But anyone want to say something about the Rabbi Cook piece about the righteous? Don't sit around and complain about stuff all day long. Instead, they just go and do the work of making things better. What do we do with that today? Or maybe how do we prevent ourselves from just devolving into complaining about it? Because boy, it's easy to do that. And some of you might have this with your, and I see your hand, Barbara. We'll go to you in a second. But some of you might have this with your friends or children or spouses or parents or whatever it is. You might at times have to have sort of an agreement where it's like, okay, guys, we can't just do this. We can't just sit around all day long and complain about the administration or what's happening in Israel or what's happening here or what's happening there. I mean, there's so many things we could go to, but we can't just do that all day long. Instead, light a match, light a candle. So go do something good, go volunteer, go try to make a difference. Barbara, your turn.
Yeah, I was going to recommend peaceful protests with positive signs. There's a way to say things in a negative way, but in a positive way. And that's, there's a lot of organizations. Well, I'm in Cape Cod right now, so there's a lot going on there. But I haven't done as much. I just got here from Florida. It's the whole thing. But at least it's positive, and you feel like you're doing something to make change without,
Nice.
without hurting, to counteract the wickedness that's going on. Yeah, that's it.
I like that, going to a protest, but with a positive sign. Instead of bringing more negativity
Exactly.
and more conflict and more tension, instead something really beautiful and really positive. I love that.
Thank you.
Lori, I see your hand, please.
So I'll chip in as a repeat offender. In Musar, right, it talks about, in Levinas's approach to Musar particularly, he talks about, the whole point of being in community is to lift the burden of the other. And if there is something that you are facing that you don't know what to do, like you're paralyzed, then you look around, because when you talk about your responsibility, the idea is you look at both parts of that word, your response and your ability. Like, what do you have the capacity to do? Find someone or something that you can address. We can't all address everything, that will get overwhelmed and shut down. But there is something maybe closer, something or someone closer to you where you can affect change. You maybe can't push
Nice.
back against the things that are dangerous for you to push back at, but find a thing, a something. Is it back to what Robert keeps saying in the comments, which is find a place to be kind.
Nice. I really like that. And it is a reminder, going back, I think it was Ahmed had the comment earlier about, for some people it's very dangerous to speak up. But okay, so even if you're in a place where you feel like, oh, I can't do that, well, can you just bring some more kindness into the world? I was thinking about, I have 3 daughters, and our youngest is still in college. And, wow, I don't want her to have to be out there protesting every day and fighting all the time. But one way she can resist some of what's happening on her college campus is just go have Shabbat dinner at Hillel, or get together with some friends and study a text, have a Tikkun, Leil Shavuot. Those are very positive, powerful ways that we can resist evil. Those are positive, powerful ways we can resist some of the painful things we see in the world. I'm going to go to this poem because I don't want to run out of time for that. It's by an Israeli poet named Adi Kesar, and she was born in 1980. And this was something that she published. It's a poem that she published in October of 2023. She is of Yemenite descent, and she's the founder of a movement in Israel that brings Mizrahi, North African, and Middle Eastern voices into Israeli literary mainstream through poetry and other kinds of things. She's really, really powerful and very beautiful, beautiful poet. But I'm going to share this one with you, and I'll read this aloud. It's very rich. We're not going to have time to try to unpack it all. I just wanted to share it with you, and there might be a phrase or something powerful about it. I'm going to invite you, if there's something in this poem that really grabs you, put it in the chat, share it there, and others can see it. But this, again, is a poem she published in late October of 2023, so just a few weeks after the October 7th massacre. And this is her translation, actually. I'm not sure if I could go back to life this time. A morning run, bike trip, party, without the face of the dead haunting me. I'm not sure if I could come back alive this time. An empty baby bed, a blanket colored red. What I'm sure of, automatic weapons, fire and smoke, shattered windows and a broken door, sirens going up and down, ashes and wreckage. The world is burning and I am the flames. The hours blended, also the days. At night came the dreams and the mosquitoes to suck my skin as from a hidden signal swirled around me all night, buzzed in the darkness, asked for my blood. All through the night, the air stood still between me and the world, not going in and not coming out. In the morning, I opened a window. The sun was shining in the sky. The silence filled the empty streets. I'm not sure if I could ever hear silence that doesn't hide a disaster within. I'm going to leave the text up on the screen for a moment and just invite you, if you want to put something in the chat, to do so, especially if there's a phrase or a line that really captures you, really grabs you. Feel free to put that in. And I'm going to just put the poem itself in the chat just so you have it there. If you want, you can keep that. And if you look her up, Adi Kesar, you can find some of her poem. But I see some of the comments that people wrote. Yes, the world is burning and I am the flame. That's a powerful one. And the reality of being an October 8th Jew. I want to end with a song. I want to thank you all. This journey of first just dedicating ourselves to studying the text and then asking ourselves, where can we find inspiration? What can help us to lift our eyes up? Not just getting stuck, but moving forward, finding the courage to move forward, and reminding ourselves that in the darkness, sometimes the best response is just to light a fire, light a candle. We respond to wickedness with righteousness. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yase shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Thank you, everybody. Chag Sameach. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the evening and a beautiful Shavuot.
Thank you for that wonderful session, Rabbi.
Thank you,
It
Yoshikaya.
was beautiful.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Chag Sameach.
Yashikoa.
Thank you. Yasher koach.
Thank you.
Chag Sameach, go out and spread some light.